immunity.
Happens to all of us.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Can you please give a brief background about yourself before starting Shap3D?
Sure. So I'm the founder and the CEO of Shaper.
Why am I saying Shap3D all the time?
Because that's the name of the company.
Yeah, I'll just move along with Shaper.
We just like to, sometimes we just like to use it short for like.
Dude, it doesn't have to be 3D.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah, but that was the only domain that was free
True.
So you know how it works. So I'm the founder of Shap3D, and I've been working in this for 6 years now. 6 years. But actually, this is something that has a much longer history. Actually, I've been working on this for more than 10 years now, but the company is 6 years old. I bootstrapped the company initially. I had another CAD startup 10 years ago that miserably failed, and we could consider that also as a predecessor of Shaper. So I kind of feel like quite obsessed with solving this problem, and I guess I just won't stop until I do.
And where did this inspiration into the CAD space come from?
From family dinners from my childhood, I guess. So I'm from a family of engineers and architects, and like talking about CAD, not really talking.
All they talked about on family dinners were CAD tools, how sucky they are.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, complaining about CAD was a thing. I mean, I guess in Eastern Europe we like to complain in general about everything, but complaining about CAD was was something that we particularly like to do. And I just grew up with all that pain and suffering that legacy CAD systems cause to my family, and I guess this is just my childhood trauma that I'm trying to fix with Shaper.
Your family now uses Shaper? Are they like good product users?
So my parents retired, unfortunately, so they don't. But my brother is actually using Shaper.
Is he complaining?
No, not about Shaper. Well, he's making some really awesome feature requests sometimes, and he used to shape the roadmap quite significantly in the early days.
And can you tell us what Shaper does? What's CAD?
Sure. So CAD stands for computer-aided design. So these softwares or these tools are like a wide range of different software that usually solve all sorts of architectural and engineering problems. And it's funny because CAD means computer-aided design, but traditional CAD tools are really not design tools. They tend to be computer-aided documentation tools, so they are much more focused on the documentation part, manufacturing documentation or documentation part of the business or product design workflow. And this is one of the unique differentiators of Shaper, is that we started as a conceptual design tool that is focusing much more on the early stages of the design process, conceptual design, prototyping, ideation, and step by step we are adding more and more and more to the product to cover more and more of the design process. And this way, sneakily, step by step, we are becoming a full feature tool that can cover the entire design process.
Without anyone realizing it, it's happening.
Yes.
And in which industries? What are some of the major use cases?
So we are. So there are two major types of CAD. One of them is AEC, so architecture, basically, and we are not doing that. We are focusing on MCAD, which is short for mechanical CAD, but actually mechanical CAD is a broader category. It's not just for mechanical engineering, but also for product design. So basically, we are focusing on product design, manufacturing, engineering use cases, and we are, interestingly, so basically what we did is we dramatically lowered the barrier of entry to 3D design with the way how we design the product, and that enables us to monetize a much broader customer base than traditional CAD can. So we have a significant prosumer hobbyist customer base.
And what's a prosumer?
Prosumer is someone, I think there is no good definition for it, but basically someone who is not just a consumer or hobbyist, but also not necessarily a professional. So these people very often make money out of Shap3D, and they are using it for creating something that they will eventually sell, but you wouldn't really consider them like businesses, but they are very, very small, like businesses, like one-man shows, right? So we have a significant customer base in the prosumer space, and we also have a pretty significant B2B customer base, and we are actually like step by step moving up market and expanding mostly our B2B customer base.
It's funny how you said mechanical CAD, because unfortunately I'm a civil engineer, hated CAD, and then I did sustainable project management masters. After that, I did mechanical engineering, heating, ventilation, air conditioning, plumbing, designing all of that. I can come to your family dinner. I can come to your family dinner and complain. I can be one of those people.
Yeah, I mean, look, like this industry is one of the last big software industries in the world that has not been disrupted since the 1990s, and it's quite amazing. I mean, even in ERP, which is one of the oldest software categories, even there you have, like at least more modern solutions. Maybe the industry did not transform completely, but you have something that is new and modern. In CAD, you really don't. And a lot of companies try to disrupt the industry. There was, for example, Onshape. They raised $250 million, $250 million, founded by the founders of SolidWorks, and they ended up with a few thousand paying customers. Got acquired by PTC. So I wouldn't say that they disrupted the industry.
PTC is the construction company, right?
PTC is Parametric Technology Corporation. They invented parametric CAD in the 1980s. And
such a fun topic.
Yeah, I mean, I could talk about it probably for 10 hours, I guess. So anyway, so they got away with PTC. There was another company called Space Claim. They raised $100 million. They ended up with a few thousand paying customers. And there's a long list of failed CAD companies in the last 30 years. And then there's Shaper. So far we raised like 10 million or so, and we have more than 40,000 paying customers. And we are by far the fastest growing CAD company in the last 30 years. Yeah, it's a really interesting space, and it looks like we have figured out how to like be that company that will eventually define this industry for the next few decades.
40,000 customers. Obviously, I want to dig into that.
Yeah, 40,000 paying.
40,000 paying customers. Questions. How many non-paying customers? What's the churn like? What's the growth like?
Oh, is
What's
this
the
a
MRR
due diligence? Like? Or do you want access to our data room? Or yeah, so we have hundreds of thousands of monthly active free users. And we have much more downloads than that, but that's not really the metric that we are tracking. Yeah, what else did you ask? Like growth, yeah, growth, that thing, yeah. So we are doing well. We are the fastest growing CAD company, not just today, but in the last 30 years.
But competition is not that good in terms of growth.
Not anymore, because we outcompeted them. But and yeah, like that by itself is not a super high bar. But we even compared to like other SaaS companies, we are doing quite well.
And as far as I know, you're the only product-led growth company in the CAD space. A, is that correct? And B, do you think you'll be able to sustain that advantage longer? Or do you see either new players popping up with similar strategies, or existing legacy players trying a similar strategy, more of a bottoms-up approach?
Yeah, I think that's correct. Despite pretty much every other CAD startup tried to do the same, and all of them failed. And that's mostly because when you are building for PLG as a distribution model, your product is the distribution engine as well. And if you just take a legacy CAD product, or if you follow legacy product management practices, or if you think about the product as something that will be handed over to the customer by a salesperson, right? Then you will just fail. I mean, you have to build the product with go-to-market intent in your mind, and that requires a completely different approach to building a product. And building a CAD system is, by itself, any kind of CAD system is not for the faint-hearted, to be honest. It's enormously hard. It's one of the hardest software to build in the world. And making it easy makes it like 10 times harder, and improving, including the go-to-market intent, is again like a 10x multiplier on how hard it is to build. So yeah, we are tackling something really, really complex here.
And what are some of the wow effects to the customer? What makes them tick? And then it becomes much more of a viral product, whereas your competitors have zero product virality, except for your dinners.
Yeah, I guess you're referring to our legendary Instagram account, right? Where we have 360,000 followers. We built a pretty significant.
You can build a business out of that. Like become an influencer.
Actually,
like
yes, we have
food recommendations, smoothies.
True. We have more followers, more social media followers than Autodesk. And probably their marketing budget is more than our entire budget.
I thought you were going to say something like Beyonce or something, and then you said Autodesk.
No, yeah, well, yeah, that's the next level, I guess, next frontier for our social media team. No, so we have a pretty significant customer follower base, and that's mostly because of the visuality of the product. It's like CAD lives in people's mind as a really old, very traditional software, and we built something that is at the first glance it's super differentiated. You just look at it and okay, so this looks like a 3D CAD, but oh wow, is it running on a tablet? Is it running on a mobile device? Oh, I can use it with like with touch and pen, and okay, like this has all sort of like features that look like super modern, but like these are not something that exists in a traditional CAD system. So this is what helped us a lot in the early days with distribution. I wouldn't say that it's the primary customer acquisition channel for us anymore. It's still quite significant, and we're still investing in that. But definitely the super cool visual appearance of the product helps us a lot in the early days.
And compared to a company that's raised $10 million, you have a huge team and 40,000 customers, which means you have to be extremely profitable and unit economics positive. Can you walk us through that? How profitable are you? How are the current unit economics? What's a healthy unit economic for you guys?
Sure. So building a PLG company is hard. I would say it's probably harder than building a sales-led company in many ways. But if you nail it, then you will be super cash efficient. So this is basically the secret of PLG companies is that if you manage to get a product-based distribution, then your unit economics are going to be fantastic. That will make you super cash efficient, and that will also make you highly contrarian in the early 2010s. So that was one of the reasons why we actually had a really hard time raising money in 2015-16 when when PLG was not a thing yet. Today, everybody is PLG. Everyone, like every single company in the world, is now PLG. I kind of hated the term. I don't even use it, to be honest, because of that.
What do you say? I'm sure you have your own nomenclature for that.
I'm just using like bottom-up distribution. I usually, when I talk about it, I just want the other person to say it instead of But yeah, so PLG gets you very efficient distribution, and because of that, our unit economics are quite fantastic. Our payback period on many channels it's like super short. It's like
how short? 3 months, 6 months?
0 months. So it's immediate.
But that's bad, no? Because an investor wouldn't want a couple-month payback period. We actually want 10 to 12-month payback period, which means you're pushing aggressively enough for growth.
Yeah, and this is not all of our channels, of course. So eventually you look at CAC on a blended basis. But on some channels we are super efficient, and we can use that to invest in channels that are a bit less efficient.
These are more like capped channels that are not highly scalable.
So it's like every channel is capped. There is no infinitely scalable channel in the world, right? So yes, like some of them are capped, but eventually what you look at is the blended CAC, and still in terms of blended CAC, our payback period is well below a year, and we just launched our Windows product a month ago. That will
sound so boring when you say a Windows product.
Right?
Comes with the brand.
Nothing
the
cool.
Boringness.
Nothing cool is here. Yeah. So we just launched our Windows product that is going to 10x our TAM, and that will make our distribution even more efficient.
How many of you know what a payback period is for a SaaS company? I mean, excluding you two, you three. So payback period is basically if you've spent $100 for customer acquisition today, how long would it take you to recoup that $100? And companies look at it on a blended basis because there are different channels that have different payback periods. And then the blended CAC was the blended customer acquisition cost for Shaper, basically. It took you 4 years to raise what would today be more like a seed round. I mean, it took a while, which is what you mentioned. And you said that it's because investors didn't understand PLG, and then all of a sudden PLG became hot. Is that why?
Yes and no, but you mean like it was a seed round 6 months ago, right? Today, again, it's a decent Series A. Yeah. So yes, like we had, I think in the early days, it was super, super tough for us. One of them was indeed the distribution model that we were super bullish on. We were a bit ahead of time, I think, 3 or 4 years maybe, when this distribution was really not that widespread and not that popular. We were super bullish on it. This was one issue. The other issue is that investors were saying that, look, this is awesome. I love the vision. This is great. There is no way that you can build a CAD system. It's just impossible. You can't build a CAD system.
Investors know so much about building CAD systems.
No, they ask their friends who know a lot about CAD system, and like I think the general view in the industry is that all these legacy CAD companies are super safe because it's impossible to build a CAD system. And honestly, they are not wrong. It's close to impossible. So if you want to build like an actual like replacement product that will kill legacy CAD companies or legacy CAD systems, it will take you 7, 8, 9 years. So you have to find, a way to position yourself somehow differently, somehow not as a replacement tool, but something else. And you also need a segue from that product to become like a replacement tool. And this is, I think, like the biggest strategic advantage of Shaper is that we figured this out. Like, how can we build something that is smaller, not necessarily a replacement tool initially, and how can we transition from that tool to become an actual replacement tool? But like, quite frankly, and in all transparency, we are still not a full-featured replacement tool yet. In 18 months, maybe 12 months, we will get there. And you can go segment by segment, vertical by vertical, persona by persona, and you can get there. But it's enormously hard. And, like, building a company that requires 8 years of financing without much proof that they can eventually, like, build something really, really large, it's tough. Yeah.
Something that you said resonated with me. You said that you were perhaps 3-4 years too early to the market, and I think that's a great thing. That's a blessing, because obviously Sanchez in Europe has a lot of good engineering talent. It's much more cost efficient compared to the US, etc. But 200 countries are more cost efficient compared to the US. So how you can turn that into an advantage, and that's a strategy that we employ a lot as a fund, is we have the leverage to be too early to a market. A US investor or a US team needs to build the right product with the right team, but timing is also crucial. They have to be at the right time. They can't sustain in the market for 5 years and wait for the market to mature, and then they'll be good positioned. It will take millions of dollars. Whereas from this part of the world, we can. So as a thesis that we have, which is core to our fund, we're not scared if we're too early to the market, as long as we know that we can sustain for 4, 5, 6 years into the market. And when the right time comes, we'll be positioned much like how Shaper was positioned today.
Actually, I think with the product, we were not too early. It was our distribution model that was not widely understood. That was indeed a problem. And I'm a product engineering founder, right? I'm not a GTM founder. I learned GTM the hard way, but that's not my natural strength. And for me, explaining how we think about go-to-market in the early days, that was super tough. Super, super tough. And now you can just say that we are PLG, and everyone knows what that is. But 2015, you said that, oh, okay, so we are going to do it like this and that. But who is going to buy like that, right? How can you convince the decision maker? And now everyone is doing it.
And after the Figma exit, CAD space is obviously hotter than ever. Are you feeling it? Is it warm out there?
I think there are a few people who think or who see that there are parallels between us and Figma, and I think in many ways that's right. But it's a slightly different market. And I think it's also, and I'm not bragging, but I think it's a bit harder to build a 3D CAD system than building Figma. And building Figma is super hard already. So there are not a lot of companies that are trying to do what we are doing. Actually, we are the last one standing. Every other company from the last 5 to 10 years failed, and they just couldn't execute on this strategy. And yes, we are seeing, like, answering the original question, because of that, we are seeing significant interest. And I think this comparison is not wrong at all.
And you have great investors from Europe, but have you tried fundraising from the US at all, or are you?
I did, and it was the dumbest idea ever. I was super naive. I had no idea how fundraising works. And this was in 2017. And that was a different world. So today, most US investors will easily write a check to a European company. That was very different in 2017. So actually in 2017, like, the default was that we are going to invest if you move here tomorrow. I mean, like 2 streets away from here.
If you're going to move here yesterday.
Yes, exactly. And we have to, like, meet in person regularly. That changed a lot, obviously. And I'm not sure. So I think there's no going back, but we will see, right?
It really depends on liquidity. I think if the liquidity on venture capital shrinks, then it's going to turn out to be, again, a proximity game. If there's too much competition, too much liquidity, then everyone is stepping on each other's foots, and it becomes a global game.
Sure. Yeah.
Hopefully.
Sure. We will see.
And what's next for Shaper?
World domination. Maybe not world, but industry domination. So that's really what we are working on. So overall, what we want to achieve with Shaper is that we want to build an enduring company. We want to build a generational company. We want to build a company that will define this industry, and that requires a lot of persistence and a lot of patience and a lot of long-term thinking. And I think many of the investments that we made maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago are now coming into fruition. And in the next couple of years, we are going to harvest a lot of that. And that's super exciting, to be honest.
One last question. Another big round coming soon?
Round? No. Is it possible to raise today?
Of course.
Is it? Really?
Yeah, being a company like Shaper,
really?
An entrepreneur like you, of
okay.
course.
No, that's too kind of you. Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult market environment, I guess. And also fundraising is not, as Valin said, fundraising is not a goal, but a tool. So you have to have a very specific goal, especially at this stage. I mean, just raising for the sake of raising, you shouldn't do it. You should raise because you can achieve more with it. And there's nothing that you can, there's nothing that you should celebrate about selling some of your shares, right? What you should celebrate is the opportunities that a new round opens up. And if there will be opportunities that we can seize using a new round, we will raise. If not, then we will just grow without it.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for joining.
Thank you very much.